our broad comprehension of the universe didn't show up out of nowhere. The astonishing new experience Explorer 1 had with an unidentified power might open our eyes to a totally new perspective on space. Without the journey of tests, our insight into space and a portion of our most noteworthy accomplishments would be lacking. Anyway, following quite a while of circumnavigating around in space, one of the tests appears to be having issues. This issue has shown up as we investigate the mysteries of space. A record of the two wayfarers, two of the most critical space tests ever sent off, are cruising through space. Here's a look at their fascinating story. Thanks to the twin journeys, 1 and 2, a lot of what we know about space and its many mysteries has been uncovered over the past 45 years. For the previous 45 years, they have been gathering new information. When these missions were sent off into space, there was no internet, no phones, and no contemporary technology. How strange is that? Since Explorer 1's launch by NASA in 1977, the shuttle has spent decades investigating space and providing us with numerous intriguing opportunities to view the planetary system. Fascinatingly, the mission's duration exceeded the expectations set by the researchers. Things were very different in space even after years of research on Earth. Space shuttles were able to propel themselves at speeds close to those of other planets, achieving important milestones much faster. This made it possible to change the original 30-year plan into an extended 30-year venture. Explorer 1 was able to take the lead. Although the two rockets took somewhat different paths, they left ground control 2 weeks apart, and in a mere 12 years, less than half the estimated time, Explorer 1 reached its goal. That's right, 12 years is considered short in space travel. Furthermore, Explorer 1 was the first rocket to reach the solar system's edge. There was a greater likelihood of something going wrong, and it was a far more dangerous course for Explorer 1. Getting derailed in space was a very real possibility. These two tests have contributed enormously to our understanding of space travel science. Scientists and NASA engineers are still in awe over the data and photos taken by the twin explorers. They showed us the magnificent red spot on this massive planet and took the very first pictures of Jupiter. These missions yielded other surprising discoveries concerning many stars and planets, such as the presence of water on Europa, the identification of the largest natural satellite in the solar system, and the discovery of active volcanoes on Io. We were able to uncover things we never knew existed or thought possible, as well as gather additional information about areas throughout our solar system. Isn't it interesting that Explorer 1 landed on Saturn, its original planned destination, nearly 13 years after its launch? With more detailed information about the planet's wind speeds and short 10-hour days, scientists were able to understand it better. 10 hours seems so little in a day compared to our 24. We acquired a great deal of information on the nitrogenous habitats on Titan, Saturn's moon. It also found 10 other moons around this distant planet. The two shuttles went their separate ways to continue their missions after gathering data at Saturn. While Explorer 2 continued on its path toward the last two planets in our solar system, Explorer 1 made a detour and headed for the heliosphere. These two journeys raised new questions while also contributing to answers for many others about the vastness of space. For instance, Explorer 2 collected previously unseen data on Neptune, a planet generally thought to be inferior by scientists. How could a planet so far away from the Sun reveal such interesting insights? The Sun, getting so minimal sun-powered energy, could support such varied weather conditions and environments. This surprised and astounded scientists. By 2004, the two tests were very, very distant from home and had arrived at what might be named the farthest limits of our solar system. They had reached the end-shock region in our solar system, where the solar winds dropped from thousands of miles per hour to a mere 250 miles per hour, a pace that was insignificant compared to the blinding intergalactic speed. Even though Explorer 1 had reached its limit, it still needed to go through the heliosphere to enter interstellar space. Let's now explain what the heliosphere is, in case you were wondering. The heliosphere is essentially a shield that protects our solar system and planet from the intense radiation and energy of interstellar space. Nothing has managed to go as far into space as Explorer 1, which has covered an incredible 12 billion miles since it was launched 45 years ago. Despite the fact that technology has advanced light years since then, the fact that this was achieved with so little technology is even more astonishing. Neither of the tests had a microprocessor on board, as those were non-existent even 10 years ago. The fact that there is very little, if any, software has actually contributed to its prolonged survival. Researchers and engineers concluded that the need to design everything manually was the reason behind its extended functionality. The probes could operate for so long because the onboard processors were, at best, very low-power devices. An 8-track recorder held all the data that the instruments on board the probe collected and recorded, and data was returned to Earth using a device that consumed the same amount of energy as a refrigerator light. Isn't that just crazy? The amount we achieved with such old-fashioned technology is astounding. Is it possible for us to achieve all of that without modern innovations and a touchscreen? Anyway, there is an issue. Explorer 1 appears to be having problems after 45 years in operation. Has communication with extraterrestrials finally been established? Is space travel far more hazardous than we thought it would be? Or is there a far simpler explanation? How is our trustworthy space probe, Explorer 1, doing after spending 14.5 billion miles away from Earth and years in space? It's amazing that Explorer 1 is still operational. However, a spaceship eventually experiences wear and tear from spending 45 years alone in the vastness of space, and this is beginning to happen. Even though Explorer 1 seems fully functional, scientists have discovered that they are uncertain of its exact location. We don't know where it is, even though it didn't enter safe mode or raise any red flags. Researchers and experts at NASA are puzzled but not entirely shocked. This type of malfunction in such an old probe is hardly a major surprise. What happened with Explorer 1 and what it encountered during its journey into unknown interstellar space still needs to be understood. Is there a malicious force at work, or is the probe simply aging? Scientists believe that the probe may have experienced an electronic aphasia, which results in a lack of coherent communication and makes it challenging to interpret the data it returns. NASA believes that the data Explorer 1 is sending could be generated at random and may be irrelevant to the Attitude Articulation and Control System (AACS). Instead of regularly reporting on its health and conditions, the AACS, which was responsible for maintaining the high-gain antenna's alignment toward Earth, started sending scrambled data. Since the mission is scheduled to conclude in 2030, NASA has been conserving its energy reserves by turning down non-essential components over the past 3 years to keep everything running. However, there may be some obstacles ahead. Interestingly, the probe's signals remain strong, despite the distorted transmissions. Knowing that is reassuring. Explorer's receiving wire is still facing Earth. Since the radio transmission is consistent, this shows that the probe is still accurately positioned, even though the location data is incorrect. The fault protection device that was supposed to keep the spacecraft safe in the event of a breakdown was not triggered by the current issue. The AACs had been sending telemetry data through an onboard computer that had broken down years earlier, as NASA specialists discovered when they examined and fixed the issue. To prevent such anomalies in the future, the next step is to find and fix the true cause. The random signals are confusing, but while the situation is not overly alarming at present, researchers from NASA are working diligently to decode the latest coded messages sent by the decades-old spacecraft. The space agency was prepared to handle the vast and challenging conditions of space when the probe was first launched. Explorer has operated more smoothly since it has been within the Sun's magnetic field. This field has shielded the probe from high-energy particles floating in space and solar radiation. The memory in the computer sustains minimal damage even if a high-energy particle strikes its chip. However, this damage could accumulate over time. Fortunately, NASA scientists anticipated these scenarios and designed the probe's internal systems and computers to withstand them. The end of an era. All good things must come to an end. Even with the mission's success, hard decisions must be made to allow for future growth. The explorers seem to have crossed the finish line, and we may be nearing an end after 45 challenging years in deep space. The latest bug and glitch in Explorer 1's onboard computers and ACS will force it into retirement. The American Space Agency has begun shutting down its systems and bidding the probe goodnight. It's astonishing that humanity was able to send probes into space that lasted so long, even before the development of modern technology. After 2 identical probes provided us with the closest views yet of the 2 largest planets in our solar system, the mission is coming to an end. The probes will be decommissioned by 2030. NASA is incredibly pleased with the performance of both explorers, noting that they have operated 10 times longer than guaranteed. There are 4 functional components left in the first Explorer probe and 5 in the second. They are powered by decaying plutonium, which will eventually run out. The battery output decreases by 4 watts annually, forcing NASA to make some difficult choices. NASA scientists have been gradually shutting down parts of the probe. In 2019, for instance, they turned off the heater for the essential cosmic ray detector. The magnetometer and plasma science instrument will likely be the last to be deactivated. When NASA dismantles the spacecraft piece by piece, the excess heat produced by the onboard processors keeps these components, enclosed within the spacecraft's body, warm for the longest. Others are mounted on a 13-meter fiberglass boom. Another reason for ending the mission is the distance the explorers have traveled from Earth. At present, sending a radio transmission to Earth takes 22 hours for Explorer 1 and 18 hours for Explorer 2. This period grows by 3 to 4 light seconds each year, making communication increasingly difficult as the probes drift farther apart. The murmurs from the spacecraft are harder to hear due to Earth's noise and the scattered signals. The faint data received appears to be unreliable due to a recent fault in its systems. History and prospects. Still, the value of the 2 explorers cannot be underestimated. They provided exceptional and invaluable insights into the vast and largely mysterious regions of space. It will take another 3 centuries before humans can travel all the way to the edge of our solar system. However, astronomers might be able to reach interstellar space sooner rather than later. In order to keep current spacecraft operational, Explorer 1 and 2 paved the way. The explorers have essentially become historical artifacts. It's difficult to grasp their achievement in the present day, considering that their memory systems have 3 million times less storage space than most current mobile phones. They operate at a speed almost 10,000 times slower than a 5G internet connection, yet they remain effective. The golden record that both probes carry is a message from Earth to space, translated into 55 different languages and containing images of notable people and places on Earth, as well as music. It seems that humans will always be focused on communication with extraterrestrials. Explorer mission member Jamie Rankin, an astronomer, spoke on the mission's future. He was pleased with the mission's substantial unintended success, which required multi-generational teams. This kind of outdated technology was not expected to last so long in space, yet it did. We should not underestimate the work the Explorer missions have been doing behind the scenes, even though they have become less prominent in recent years. The 2 probes, despite their outdated memory and transmission technologies, remain essential tools for expanding our knowledge of space and stand on the frontier of space exploration.